Good evening. Today's May 5th. First, I'd like to thank our listeners and ask you guys to be patient with us as we are transitioning and going through this change, trying to figure out and find our groove. It's really not easy with Victor Gunn, as obviously he is such a force of nature, but keep sending us your suggestions. I definitely read all the questions, suggestions, Twitter messages, etc. But unfortunately, I just can't reply to them all as of right now. But we're definitely listening and reading them. And Victor is going to join us tomorrow, so we'll see what he has to add to our podcast as well. But back to the markets. S&P 500 was trading today in a range, and we closed basically unchanged, give or take a few points after selling off at the end of the day. For me, the 4180 level on the futures is really important. That this is what I was looking at to take a trade against, and slightly longer term, I personally wouldn't rule out a 5% pullback on S&P, which if you put the daily chart, you could see it would put us around 4%, 4,000. 5% pullback would put us around the 4,000 level. But that's just too far off right now, and that's more like a longer term overview. We have to trade first to 4,100 level and see what the reaction would be there. On the other hand, like I said, the 48 level on S&P, if we were to break that level to the upside, I personally would say that new highs are likely. And partly I'm leaning towards the downside movement because the sentiment it looks very frothy as of right now. And even today, for example, Kramer said that he likes more stocks now than I could ever recall. So everything looks rosy. And, maybe not so woke though, because Andy, I want to talk to you later about the pharma and vaccines, but we'll get back to it. But for now, what is your take on the S&P?
Oh well, it's I'm trading right now, and I one of the things that I think is interesting is that one of some of the data that I look at is some of the where some of the options trades are as an indicator of where there's sort of a bias up or a bias toward more volatility, and so we were bouncing around this 4168 range that seems to be it's what the spot gamma service that I subscribe to that analyzes all of the options data for you for ES and for SPX, and what according to their analysis, 4168 is like volatility trigger level. So if S&P goes below that range, we should expect to see more volatility, generally a little bit more downside, but it could just be bouncing around more. Whereas if we're staying above that 4168 level, we would expect it to be more likely to trend upward and be more bullish. But it doesn't seem to be staying above that level. So I'm thinking a little bit more volatility here. I think that longer term it's bullish, but in the near term we may see a little bit more downside.
Right, and kind of similar picture for Nasdaq, I would say. It closed 43 points down today after, again, as well, selling off at the end of the day. And I also think the 1300 level on Nasdaq is very likely, on a daily chart, is very likely to be revisited sometime in the near future. So on the daily chart, you could see that 1300 level that I'm talking about, that it has been going up since after breaking out without pullbacks. And now that we are seemingly going down, it may revisit that level. And as I've mentioned, because most of the earnings have been positive while reaction to them has not been positive. But we will see. Oh, well, Angie, do you want to add anything to NASDAQ, or do you look at those option levels on NASDAQ or not really?
We can. So where that volatility level is we're beneath that one too. So it's about 13,712 is that same volatility level. until we were trading above it from last night to just a little bit earlier today, and then it broke below that level. So it's what it's saying is that we'd expect to see some greater volatility, an increase in gamma, and therefore an increase in volatility as we stay below that level.
Right. And there was lots of data on inflation today as lumber futures extended their record rally and now above 1500 for the first time. And you could see the inflation also in labor prices. It's not just commodities anymore. As Uber and Lyft have been having trouble finding drivers, even before Biden has today changed the rules, which would make it a lot more difficult for them to be qualified as individual contractors. They have to become an employee in many cases. So that's going to increase the cost even more. But even before this change, I've observed that in Florida, in New York area, many people were complaining you can't even get an Uber, and prices are definitely way higher. And today the market report has came out saying that the PMI has the highest reading since 2009, and it's 9th consecutive month of expansion. So, so much for being transitory. And they also noticed that the output rate inflation accelerated again since the highest since 2009. And same goes for housing, even though it's anecdotal evidence. I hear it from people constantly. Oh, we just put the house on the market and got so many offers and sold it within 2 weeks. And this goes across various centers, whether it's California or Northeast or Florida. It's
we're certainly seeing that in some of the commodities, some of the agricultural commodities, a new at least closing high, not a contract high, but a new closing high here for corn, soybeans. It's very close to the high here. I guess that's soybean oil, punching toward a new high here. Gold, not quite at highs, but rallying today, about 0.6%. Silver, about flat today, but across the board, a lot of commodities are crude is near a high, but not as high. It would pull back a little bit today, but we are seeing copper. All of these are very close to their either at or close to their contract highs right now.
Right. So it will be interesting if Fed will be backed into a corner if the inflation continues to rise, and they will have to raise the rates. Mm-hmm. I don't know how they will react, obviously.
The one that continues to rally very strongly, almost knock limit up every day, is lumber, and that's it's just been fascinating to watch. This isn't a very liquid contract, so it's hard to trade in a big size, but still, it's just been incredible rally here, a crypto-like rally. Without pause.
Lumber is the new crypto, right?
Right. So maybe flipping to crypto, we did see, I think what I've been expecting to see is a bit more of a rally in Bitcoin, maybe a pause to some degree in Ethereum and some of these others, and a bit more of a rally in Bitcoin. We're seeing the rally in Bitcoin, but right now, at least, Ethereum has been rallying right along with it, and is now at 34.32. So it was up 5.9, nearly 6% today. Bitcoin was up closer to 7% today. But we're starting to see a little bit more broad rally in such crypto is Polkadot, one of the leading platforms. Cardano up 15% today. So some of these are now close to their all-time. This is close to Cardano's all-time high, and very close to Polkadot's all-time high. And well, actually, it's a little bit to go. It's about 48 is its all-time high, and it's now at 38. But it's been a we're starting to see some rallies in some of these other crypto. The one that we've talked about a little bit is Dogecoin, where it's I think that maybe there's some of what's driving this is Elon Musk has been kind of a promoter of it, and he's appearing on Saturday Night Live this Saturday, and there are people anticipating that he'll pump it in some way on Saturday Night Live. I'm not sure that's
right.
good
It's
thing.
up 22% today or something, right?
Right. Well, I've got 18, but that's like from last night around this time. So it just depends on how you what the timing is. But it's up a lot today. It was up to new all-time high today, and it's pretty amazing to watch this one. I think it's as we discussed, it's more of an index of speculation than it is like there's a big fundamental driver to it. But I think it's for this to be the number, I think it's number 4 crypto right now. It, as someone who
number 4 by what? By market cap or by
market cap, right? It causes me, it gives me a little maybe some
feeling,
feeling of the shoe shine boy, giving stock advice, that type of thing, a little bit of a pause that maybe this is a contrary indicator and we're going to see a little bit of a pullback. But I think that the fundamentals for something like Ethereum are still very good. But it still, is there just too much speculation happening that might cause a pullback, where these people, the people that would buy something like this, generally they're not they're in it to make money rapidly, and so they're also not going to be the people that hold. If it pulls back 30% or 40%, they'll try to bail out to save their investment. So they're weaker hands than people that might hold a Bitcoin or have held it for years, or an Ethereum that have held these for a very long time and have their fundamental reasons for holding. But,
right, and like you said yesterday, I thought it was very interesting. I didn't even think about this, that it's very hard to short Dogecoin. So that's another reason why the price perhaps is going up that dramatically.
And where you can short it is at some of these offshore exchanges where they officially don't allow U.S. investors, like FTX or Deribit, and you can essentially go short like 10 to 1 or 50 to 1 leverage on these. And so what happens is it's just like what you see in let's say commodities markets, where you have a lot of leverage that people on the opposite side of the trade will try to hunt stops and try to trigger the stops. And that's part of what's happening, is that you've got these very leveraged shorters that they're getting stopped, they're getting liquidated and stopped out by people pushing this up. There's a little bit of that kind of Robinhood GameStop action. Right. But they've now switched to Dogecoin and some others.
Do you know if Dogecoin is popular in Asia? Because I know crypto in general is popular in Asian markets, Korea, Japan, China, etc. What about Dogecoin, or is this a U.S. phenomenon?
It's a little bit. I'd say maybe to some degree that what tends to happen though is that Chinese investors, they definitely are in one, they have much more of a trading kind of culture, even than in the United States, and so there will be more pumps and dumps on those exchanges than what you'll see on the U.S. exchanges. Yeah, like South Korea was one where they were pulled out of a lot of the services like CoinMarketCap and so on because there was just some really crazy speculation happening there. And a lot of the Chinese exchanges, they don't charge any exchange fees, any trading fees. So it encourages very rapid trading. and bots and things like that. But maybe Dogecoin's not as popular in China because they tend to be focused on, if they're going to speculate, it's going to be things like Neo that are Chinese projects.
Like local.
Right. And these are Chinese projects. I mean, they're very involved in Bitcoin. I mean, most of the mining happens in China. Ethereum, these are very popular there, but the ones after those that are popular in China are the Chinese projects where they have a lot of networks there and they're popular there. But maybe Dogecoin a little bit less. It's, I think, a little bit more of a US and a European phenomenon would be my guess.
I also wanted to talk about pharma with you today, obviously, because you're an expert in it, but also because there's so much development has been going on with Pfizer and vaccines and patents. So just to recap, Pfizer had a really good quarterly earnings report because of the vaccination. And now that Biden is targeting 70% of adults vaccinated by 4th of July, and they have given Pfizer permission to sell extra vaccines abroad, it seems like their revenue stream is going to continue, even though in US, the amount of vaccinations has been dropping daily, just as COVID cases have been dropping. Well, also just to add to the vaccination, Pfizer CEO said that they want people to be vaccinated yearly because you need to keep up the immunity, get the updated virus genes. And so the revenue stream seems solid. But on the other hand, Biden administration is considering waiving the patent laws for COVID vaccines temporarily to increase the production of vaccines overseas. And so then obviously the question arises, how's COVID death different from, say, a cancer death? If you're temporarily waiving a vaccine or a patent for a vaccine, well, why would you not temporarily waive a patent for some other super deadly disease that kills innocent children, for example? And so then where is this line? And if they have started on this path, wouldn't they just continue? And how would that affect the stock prices? So Andy, what do you make of that?
Yeah, I think something like especially given that the Pfizer vaccine, they had to design and build and manufacture these special shipping containers for these to go to and so on, to keep it refrigerated at the right temperature. And it's a very complex supply chain compared to what you might have for a cancer drug, where that's going to be shipped directly to an oncology clinic or hospital, wherever someone's treated. But the fact is that vaccines aren't really a big moneymaker for the pharma industry. And that's for a couple of reasons. Like a cancer drug, there might be, let's say, I don't know, 400 people that get the treatment in a year for an expensive cancer drug. But that's because it's whatever, for this specific type of lung cancer, and it's very effective, but you have to pass all these diagnostics and not be on some other treatment and on and on. And so it might just be whatever, 400 or 1,000 patients or something. And so the price has to be high in order to make money on it, because there's so few patients. Whereas something like there are already 80 million plus 90 million people in the United States that are vaccinated with one of the COVID vaccines. So it's much broader, but vaccine at most, Pfizer is getting like, I want to say like $80, $90 in revenue for this per dose, per treatment. And so it's not like a cancer drug that might cost $30,000 or something. It's a very small amount. And by the way, I mean, patients aren't paying for this out of pocket at all. It's being paid for by the CDC or out of that budget. And so Pfizer's probably not making very much money on this.
Well, they said that their revenues increased 45% year over year. I don't know if that's vaccines because I didn't look obviously the financials, so I don't.
But that's other drugs that have launched, and the other thing that they did, which was very smart, is they in the last year they spun off their established products, these are largely like one, they had a generics division, and two established products. These are branded products that have gone off patent that they're very slow growth, but they're you can make money on them, but they're slow growth. And so they kept their innovative products like cancer and inflammation, the vaccines, and kept those, and that's where most of the growth is. But it's in products like like the products for psoriasis or other inflammation. That's where the big growth is happening. Certainly, I mean, they're getting revenue. Don't get me wrong; they're getting revenue from COVID vaccine, but it's not like it's not going to be big. It's not a big money maker for them compared to other things. It's other products where they're making where they're going to get the revenue, the profits. But it's the one thing that is that was also announced today, just a few hours ago, is the Biden administration said that they're considering waiving intellectual property rights for these products so that they can be manufactured. And with that, really, it won't affect the U.S. It'll affect like countries like India and Thailand and so on, where there's a large poor population, and they won't have to like get permission from the pharma companies and so on to manufacture them there. But the pharma companies have been giving away a huge amount of their product to these countries anyway, so it may add a little bit to the supply, but it's not going to do too much because they've been giving away a ton of a huge amount of their product. But it's in countries like India where they're still facing crisis, and they have to do something. They've got they've got a lot of manufacturing capacity there, and they could do it if the U.S. government gave them the green light to do it. But I'd say that COVID's probably not going to be a huge moneymaker for Pfizer. It's not to say that it's not doesn't help their business. It does, but it's just not. It's other things where they really are going to be. But it is a well-run company. When I was at Pfizer myself for 5 years, and I worked with the person who is currently the CEO, and it's a very sharp team there right now. They are dominant in pharma industry for a reason.
Would you recommend, or do you own Pfizer, or is that?
I do have Pfizer stock, and I think it's it's of course a big pharma, so it's not going to have the same maybe speculative potential as a biotech, where they have one or two products and a small pipeline. There's more upside, but a lot more risk there. Whereas something like Pfizer, if you look at, so we're looking at a daily chart, and it's been trading in they did have some issues back here along with the rest of the stock market back in March 2020, and crashed right along with the market. But it trades more like the market, or tends to perform it'll perform a little better than the market, I would think, over time, but it's more of a long-term investment than something where I think there's a near-term speculative potential.
Do you have any, because people were asking about biotech recommendations, do you have one or two plays that you like to tell us in more detail today?
I will. Here's what my response on that. I will. There's a couple that I'd like to look at before I talk about them on this call or this podcast. But I'll either tomorrow or Friday, depending on when we have time, I'll bring those up, and I'll show 3 or 4 different ideas that I want to check a few things in terms of their pipeline before I show those. But I'll do that. this week.
Sounds good. If you don't have anything else for today, I think we should wrap it up.
No, that's it for me, but thank you. We'll talk about that later this week.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. And we'll talk to you tomorrow.
Thank you.